Continuing with the Death of the Springs Seeps and Headwaters tour here in Willows Creek country. We're in the Willows Creek watershed at a different location. Here is what this year's grazing event did to a flowing stream. There's a gouged out stock pond up at the headwaters above us. So cows theoretically have plenty of water there. No need to do this. Besides, there's supposed to be Forest Service standards preventing this from happening with utilization. Certainly this exceeds any possible utilization standard, even though they completely ignore the trampling. But when we look over here, we can see what has already happened to former spring areas. You see the spring channels here. Then we can look up and see this now isolated willow pocket up in the hill that once was connected to a larger wetland area. All of this has been killed from livestock grazing, chronic impacts incrementally over time, trampling, severe grazing, erosion, loss of the spring. And where we were just looking at that still had flowing water, that's next in line. If this grazing continues like this in this watershed. Here are aspen, the impacts of the aspen from the cows. The whole place is being destroyed. Willows Creek Allotment, one of the many tributary drainages, all of which are suffering this same fate. Simplot livestock grazing. This is an area 8 or 9 years ago, at least, that we brought the then Humboldt Forest supervisor, Bob Vaught, along with Simplot's cowman, Chuck Jones, he was along, and another rancher named Pete Morai, out to look at livestock degradation of the Mountain City Ranger District. The only thing that's happened since that time is the increasing damage to the spring seeps and streams has caused the head cuts to grow, more potential for wetlands to be permanently lost, and irreparable damage to occur. This head cut's just going to keep moving upstream, take out these willows that are here because long ago there used to be much more water in beaver ponds, but the cows are killing the potential, for there to be water even in this watershed anymore. Okay, here we are, Willows Creek tributary. Former wet meadow now has silver sage growing in the heavy clay soils that have lost their potential to support wetland vegetation. You can see a head cut happening here. This one looks like it's a cattle trail that is causing the head cut to develop. Cow trail coming on down, water starts running down the cow trail, and then it starts eroding with the trampling and the degradation, starts eroding upstream, and pretty soon you get this drop like this that's just going to continue to take out what remains of this meadow and further destroy potential for meadow vegetation. Another chapter in Death of a Watershed. Quite a sizable head cut here. The watershed is essentially falling apart and unraveling due to the livestock grazing impacts that are not controlled by the forest. Year after year, it gets grazed and trampled to severe levels, and nothing happens. They don't cut the AUMs on the permit, which are 700 cow-calf pairs, and some of these calves are the size of a Volkswagen by now. And they're essentially killing the whole potential of these watersheds to store and slowly release water and even have water in them. If you've ever floated the Owyhee River, that brown color, it's coming from these headwaters that are unraveling on the Humboldt-Toiyabe and Elko BLM lands and some BLM lands in Idaho. Look at this, it's just like cutting into what is super dense soil. The only thing that's keeping this from just completely blowing out and widening tremendously right now is that there's some sedge roots, some rush roots left, juncus roots left. They're very tough, and they're one of the last species to go away with severe overgrazing. But keep beating it out like this, they're going to go away. There's going to be nothing holding these soils in place. Okay, here's a good spot to show that this area used to have just a whole series of beaver ponds. We look up there, a little bit of the line of willows left, and you can see the bank area continuing. Down here too. Unfortunately, there's no longer even perennial flow here. There's a little bit of water upstream between some of the head cut pockets. No fish left. Just soil erosion, cattle trampling, cattle manure, and death of a wetland. Another Miller Creek tributary, a larger one, the Moonshine Spring area. Headwater spring, churned to dirt by the cows. Above us, aspen patch that has no understory left, just bare dirt. Old sheepherder carvings on the aspen. One of the things that likely happened here was that sheep AUMs were converted to cow AUMs, and no reductions were made for the fact that all the cows want to do is stand in the stream bottom, destroying the riparian areas. As a consequence, we have the 700 cow-calf pairs doing this, the streams out here. One correction from before, the Willis Creek watershed drainages flow into the Sheep Creek and Bruno systems, so the mud and manure goes downstream to that system from here. However, in the same allotment where we were earlier, Reed Creek Slaughterhouse, those go into the Owyhee. Here's what happens to the springs. Trample, trample, trample. So now there's 2 cow hoof prints that have water left in it. Of course, this also creates the ideal kind of situation for mosquitoes to breed in. Spread West Nile virus. Stagnant cow trampled pockmarks. But worse, it's just destruction and death of the spring. For $1.35 a month per cow-calf pair.
Hell of a deal.
Yep.